When we look at prices, they've been rising now for a while. And as that blue line's been going up and prices have been going up, the question that naturally comes to your mind is, when will we see it in the rig count? Well, what we're seeing is a natural delay, and the time lapse has occurred here. It's built into the graph. So when you look at that trough in the blue line that occurred a few months ago, it's telling us that really any week now we're going to start seeing some stability in the rig count, and then we're going to see some very mild rise in the rig count, much like we saw in the second and third quarter of 2015, that kind of mild rise. For a lot of you, at least that means the decline has stopped. If you're waiting for a great rebound in the rigs, that's not going to happen this year. You're going to find more than anything stability in the rig count so that you can at least have a floor from which you can gauge activity on. 2017, second half especially, but throughout most of 2017, you're going to see oil prices continue to move up, which means you're going to see more rig count activity, you're going to see more service activity, you're going to see everything wrapped around the oil and gas industry show some improvement in 2017. Oil prices are going to continue to move up because it's as much political as it is economic. On the economic side, we see that orange line coming down, and that's inventory. So with some downward pressure on inventories, we have an economic reason to expect some price rise. And this is an eye chart. Look at the red. When you see the red, that's the word declining. That's telling us that there are producers around the world that are cutting back in their oil and gas output, and that includes the United States. Our 3-month moving average has been declining and is going to continue to decline. So with a production declining trend in significant parts of the world, we're left with where is the rebalancing going to occur? Well, the rebalance occurs because consumption is up in the United States and consumption is up in China. And with an increased demand pull, that's a natural pull on prices. What we need is for Iran to be I was going to say taught a lesson, but that's a little too militaristic. Iran needs to be talked to. That's a better way to put it. And there's two nations that will have a talk with Iran, because they're the reason why OPEC is not cutting back on production now, and why Saudi Arabia is actually ramping up is because of Iran. What's going to likely happen is that Russia will visit Iran in the middle of the night, because they're nominal allies, satellite to Russia. And the Russians are going to say, cut back on production. If you don't cut back on production, here are the penalties. And you know how it works. If you're visited by the Russians in the middle of the night, they start talking about penalties, you tend to pay attention. Because they usually mean it. Then, and it's usually followed by aircraft and tanks. So you tend to pay attention to their suggestions. The reason that Russia will do that, in case you're thinking why would they, is because their economy is falling apart on low oil. Their federal revenue is driven 50% by oil revenue. And with these prices, they're hemorrhaging cash. The ruble will turn to rubble. There's inflation going on. Putin's losing power. He's losing his global preeminence, which he thrives on. And this will allow him to recapture some of the global spotlight, and it'll help his nation at the same time. If Russia fails to act, then Saudi Arabia will act, because Saudi Arabia is also hemorrhaging cash. While they can produce for dollars at the wellhead, their nation needs $93 a barrel to balance the budget. That's a petrochemical welfare state. And so at $46 a barrel, which is where it was before we started this meeting, there is a real problem going on with cash flow in Saudi Arabia. They're borrowing billions. And as they borrow, remember, it's a wealthy family, not a government. So you have a family that's going in the hole borrowing in order to fund low oil prices. They will make Iran come into line before they go too much further down this road. So expect higher oil prices. Now I know at home that means that the family budget takes a hit, but it's good for business. So you have to decide which is more important to you at this point. As for me, it's just good for oil prices to go up. It's good for the economy, it's good for businesses, it's good for people in this room, and it makes me look like a genius. So I got all these things going for me. I want oil prices to go up. And as they continue to go up, you'll see that stability turn to optimism. Optimism turns into activity. So at 17, we start seeing more activity. Just as a little side note, we don't use as much oil as we used to as a function of GDP. That's so you can tell the millennials that see, we're doing something right. It also means that we're energy independent when we want to be. Our alternative forms of energy are climbing all the time in terms of consumption. The amount of CO2 that the United States is pumping out is on the way down. When you look at what's happening in terms of our energy independence, it's a cyclical swing and as well as a seasonal swing going on. At the peak before this last seasonal decline, we were at 97% of the energy that we consumed, we produced ourselves. We've been talking about that as a nation since Richard Nixon, and we know that because we have the tape. It's just it's as simple as that. What's an energy independent United States mean? It means that more and more businesses continue to come to the U.S. In an hour, we don't have time to chase this down other than to say, when the press concentrates on people leaving the country, they're missing the fact that people are coming into this country to start businesses and to build and to produce. The chemical industry has over $170 billion of projects on the books. There's going to be building, there's going to be activity, there's going to be things going on, there's going to be job creation. With job creation comes taxpayers. With taxpayers comes, some remediation from the pressures that we're feeling now. All kinds of good things happen as we go energy independent. It also means that we don't care about the Middle East. So the next president could actually get a phone call from Libya saying, we're on fire, we need help. And that president could say, we're wondering where the smoke came from, thanks for clearing that up, and let it go. That saves on defense spending. As you save on defense spending, it will not reduce your taxes, but allow more money to be diverted towards the entitlement programs, which helps take some of the curse off of the next few years with the problems that we have with entitlement programs. So it all plays out well. This is an extremely important reason for you to be optimistic about the future. If you want to be pessimistic, I have enough reasons to last the last 40 minutes if you want, but we're going to go through them quickly. Anybody here from the UK? Sometimes, we have expats, UK pats coming in. Okay, don't worry about Brexit, okay? There's enough argument for it to be the end of the world, enough arguments that it won't make any difference in the world. I settled down with, it really is not going to make that big a difference to the EU, to the United States, to the world. Just chill on the whole thing. And if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. There'll be a momentary fluctuation. The markets will go, gasp. And then 2 days later, they'll see that the world is still spinning. The air is still breathable. Markets will settle down. The pound will settle down. And business will go on. So just relax on the whole Brexit thing. Same as when we talked about Greece. Remember, we were all worried about Greece a couple of years ago? I said, don't worry about that. It's a non-event. Same thing. The UK is much more important than Greece on an economy scale, but don't worry about it. If you're worried about Brazil, why are you there? Comes to mind. Never mind. I won't go there. We don't have enough time. Political issues obviously are driving the discussion today. Corruption issues, bad bookkeeping issues, hiding money in deficits. It sounds a lot like Chicago. It's just, it's just. If you're from Chicago, my apologies, but you got to admit, not every state has a governor's wing on the state prison, okay? It's just not the way that it, just not normal. Brazil will do better on commodity price rise and on oil rise. They still have a mess of internal problems, the chief of which is nationalism. And until they get past their nationalism, take Brazil off your places to go, things to do list, okay? The rest of South America will do better, but Brazil is on my list. China is on my list of things to worry about because they're a financial mess. They're a disaster waiting to happen. Their banking situation, non-performing loan portfolios, the rigidity that the new premier is building into the whole system, none of that's good. But I think that will mask it, and I don't think it'll become an issue for anybody in this room in the next 18 months. The whole world wants China to do better, and China will engineer their own recovery. They can do that. They will do it through infrastructure build. They will build more empty skyscrapers, more empty cities. They will build high-speed trains that locals can't afford to ride on. They'll do all that kind of stuff, and we in the West will cluck our tongue and go, what a silly thing. Of course, that's a disaster waiting to happen because we don't understand the Eastern mindset. They can do it. It will work. They will draw more copper out of the ground. They'll use more copper, helping them push some upward pressure on copper prices as we go forward because China will engineer their own recovery apart from market forces. They are perfectly capable of doing that, and I believe that they will because what they fear in Beijing more than anything is a popular uprising, and massive unemployment, massive dislocation of resources means that they could risk a popular uprising, and they'll do anything to avoid that. So expect copper prices to go up in part because of China. China is also seeing more activity in railroad freight carried, which is a good thing. Seeing more activity in the automobile industry, which is a good thing. And the China leading indicator, which is not a function of government numbers, has been rising since September. So I have 3 reasons to expect that China internally will show some economic life. Externally, exports are falling. showing that their pricing is off, their global competitiveness is slipping. It's a major disaster waiting to happen, but it's not going to happen anytime soon. As a matter of fact, it's not likely to happen until about the year 2030, if you want a longer-term projection. And a lot of that's because of their one-child policy with gender selection. Really bad idea. 125 million men without women. Does that sound like a good idea to anybody in this room? That just creates all kinds of problems as you go into the future. There are only two solutions, by the way. Life is simple when you only have two solutions. You either bring in 125 million women, which the world would notice and frown on, or you ship out 125 million men. Where are those men going to go? Some will go to the U.S., but most of them are going to go to Africa. China is colonizing Africa as we speak. And you're going to find that the face of the world changes as we go forward. It's going to happen slowly through time, but if there's a way you can financially take advantage of that, I suggest you do so. All right, these are the problems. World demographics we'll touch on, but not a lot. I've already talked about China. If you're worried about exports out of the United States, the green line is exports. Notice that green line has stopped declining. That's kind of cool. When you look at the blue line, that's the U.S. dollar, but it's inverted. So a rising trend there means a weakening U.S. dollar. So with a slight weakening in the U.S. dollar on a rate of change basis, we see that there's an improvement in the export position of the United States. When we go a little deeper, we look at just the exports, the rates of change on top have started to move up. We had the best February for exports since 2008. So we're beginning to see the end of this pain. It's on my negative list because it is still pain, but the rate of change turn is really making me excited. That's good news as we go forward. U.S. composite leading indicator is flat, so it's on my negative list. It is flat in large part, I believe. The actual component mix is not known to me, but I believe it's because it is weighted towards the stock market, and stock market rates of change have been negative. We've gone through this before, really just a quick reminder, I do not like this as a leading indicator. This is not a good leading indicator. The monthly data trend has the accuracy of flipping a coin. Even on a rate of change basis, this can lead, it can lag, it can ignore what's actually happening in the economy. So don't use the stock market as an economic barometer of any kind, okay? It's just not what you should be using to see around the next corner. All right, let's go on. 2 minutes on this only, because we've talked about it in the past. Healthcare in the United States is a disaster. We're the top blue line. For those of you that are new, this is one of the reasons why we're going to have a Great Depression beginning around the year 2030. All of us in the room that are baby boomers are dragging down the system at an incredible pace as we get older. We are going to suck down on a system that cannot afford us. We're going to want to live as long as we can, be fixed as long as we can, get all the services that we can until somebody says, just die, would you? And that'll be, by the way, a millennial who doesn't want to work until they're 90. Just die, give it up. So when they ask you how you're feeling, they do not want to hear well, by the way. They want to hear slipping. All right, appropriate answer. 10,000 people a day retiring into a program that we borrow on every day now. There's going to be 80 million people drawing down on this program. This is a budget buster the United States cannot afford. The Congressional Budget Office estimate is by 2035, this will take 50% of the federal budget to take care of us boomers. That's totally unsustainable. And then the other problem that we hear a lot about is the debt of the United States. It is going up. Every once in a while you hear a Krugman type or Krugman himself saying the debt of the United States doesn't matter. I don't know how it doesn't, because even if we pay interest to ourselves, which is largely Social Security, which needs the cash in order to keep from going bankrupt, the interest payments will take up 25% of the federal budget by 2035 as well. So we'll have, it's Greece. We'll look like Greece in about 15 years on the path we're on. Now, when you hear somebody say, well, we'll just have our people take a haircut, that is such a bad idea as to be a phenomenally stupid thing to say. Because when you're a debtor nation and you have to borrow the next day and the day after, when the moment you say people have to take a haircut, you can expect interest rates to go up dramatically, because who wants to take a second haircut? So they're going to get rewarded on their increased risk through higher interest rates. And when those interest rates go up, all interest rates go up. All interest rates go up, it brings about economic recession. So the moment anybody that's in authority says, hey, you know what, we're just not going to pay it all, you can find that our problems are exacerbated, I don't know, 10-fold, 20-fold as we go into the future. In the meantime, we have a Congress who refuses to deal with this problem, so it's a train wreck waiting to happen. Not going to happen soon, because Bernanke and Yellen have done a great job financing this debt for 10 years at extremely low interest rates. Smart people. That 10 years has a clock on it, though. Interest rates will be going up, so we're going to find that in the 2020s, this becomes more and more and more of a problem. But don't worry about it now. Worry about it in the 2020s when you're looking to retire. That's good for you. If you're above the age of 55, I just gave you good news, because when you're going to go to retire, interest rates will be going up. So you're going to take your nest egg, put it into high fixed income vehicles, and you're going to find that you're going to get a nice rate of return for the rest of your life. And it's why traditionalists today think Jimmy Carter was the best president that ever lived. It's because they got their really high interest rates. You're going to get to do the same thing. It'll be wonderful. If you're a Gen Xer, I just said your life is going to be miserable, by the way, because you're going to go into a Great Depression basically with no opportunity to retire well. I'd move to Oregon. Hide. Deal with it.